Hello, everyone, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. We got lots of things going on, and tonight we're going to be talking about Black Hawk. And I'm just waiting for David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers, my co-host. I hope everything's good. He will be coming on shortly. Thank you all for coming. Anyway, Travis the Brick is in the house, and another great night. We will be learning all about Indians, and tonight we're going to be talking about Black Hawk, who was a he was a Sauk or a Fox Indian. Well, he was actually a Sauk Indian. The whole thing in Wisconsin. Of course, I got saw he was in the area of Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois, and that was his stomping grounds. Found an interesting story about him and his escapades. We will be getting into very shortly. And thank you all for coming. Max Vision is in the house, and Lucky Smith is here. He says hello and prosperity to you all. And I wish the same thing. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thank you for spending your valuable time with me tonight. As always, I try to come on and put on the best show that I possibly can. And of course, this weekend, the September 4th, I will be on with Nina the Mystic on Sunday Live. So join me over there, and we're going to be talking about Atlantis, and we're going to be talking about all those good things over there. It's going to be really cool. We're going to be doing lots of stuff over there. But anyway, we're going to get right into the Black Hawk and his war. Now, Black Hawk was a Indian from he was born back in the day, of course, as a white man. I read this story, and it was kind of sad, put it that way. Black Hawk, he was a good Indian, sort of, I mean, him and just like all stories with the Indians that came along, he didn't intend, I don't think, to go wrong. He just wanted to live out his life, go hunting, things like that. And as he did those things, they went awry because of the white man coming in. So, and with that, his life was turned into turmoil and a life of war, and of course, the white man coming in destroyed his food supply, and then they were starving, and then they wanted him to move. And as the story goes, yeah, it was not a good thing for poor Black Hawk. He did not fare well with the white man coming. Okay, there we go. And I am going to share this. This is Black Hawk here, Chief Black Hawk. Of course, there's no pictures of the day. This was a good interpretation of somebody drew his picture. Known as Asaki, brave, Ma Ka Tai Mishikata Ka. So that was his name and his words. I probably butchered that, apparently, as I always do. He was born in 1776 approximately. Black Hawk was a chief of the Sauk Indians and led them during the War of 1812 and the Black Hawk War. Black Hawk, Makati Mishika K, Black Sparrow Hawk, was born in the village of Sanuk, Illinois, on the Rock River near modern Rock Island in 1767. And the War of 1812 and the Prophet. During the War of 1812, Black Hawk supported the British side as members of the Indian Confederacy led the Shawnee chief Tecumseh. During the 1820s, leadership of the Sauk tribe was contested between the peaceful pro-American chief Keokuk and aging Black Hawk. In 1830, when the tribe was ordered to abandon its lands on the Rock River, Keokuk implied, but Black Hawk refused. His antagonism increased when settlers destroyed Indian crops and burial grounds. Unprepared to fight for his lands, Black Hawk was soon forced to join the rest of the Sauk in Iowa, and followers of the Winnebago spiritual leader White Cloud or the prophet played upon Black Hawk's dislike of Keokuk. Of course, Keokuk was saying, I'm signing over all my lands and going on the reservation. On April 6, 1832, Black Hawk and his entire band, including women and children, recrossed the Mississippi. He was influenced by the prophet who assured him that the great Indian Confederacy would form behind him as it had under the leadership of Tecumseh. Proceeding up the Rock River, Black Hawk defied government orders to turn back. Yeah, that's what happens. The skirmish. With the resistance forming against him, Black Hawk soon realized that the prophet's reassurance of Indian and British support were a lie and prepared to turn back. But on May 14, 1832, Black Hawk flag of truce was violated by a party of volunteer soldiers near Dixon, Illinois. The Indians returned the fire and the volunteers fled in panic. Reports of the event led to an Indian scare throughout the Midwest. Black Hawk, at first encouraged by his easy victory, took refuge in the swamps of the Rock River near Beloit. Several weeks later, the Indian band, pursued by militia volunteers and regular army troops, began a fight northward through Wisconsin in a desperate attempt to recross the Mississippi. The chase lasted over 2 months. Several skirmishes were fought. Many Indians eventually reached the Mississippi near the mouth of the Bad Axe River. Escape. When the Indians attempted to surrender, they were met with cannon and rifle fire. The next day, the pursuing land forces arrived, and more than 300 Indians were killed or drowned. Black Hawk managed to escape, but was later captured near Wisconsin Dells. Hey, I used to live there. He was briefly imprisoned and sent east so the United States government could awe him with his power in Washington. Black Hawk then settled in Iowa until his death. And as you can see, this is the little section that they were in right here. And here's the other, and then the Sioux right next to them. The Cheyenne and the Arapaho were all in the Plains Indians over here. And then you got the Chippewa. They basically inhabited Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. Okay. There is Black Hawk himself. And of course, here's the Black Hawk War, 1807. So by the time he was having the Black Hawk War, he was an old man. Chief Black Hawk refused to say no. One can own his land. U.S. settlers moved into the village where they were away hunting. After Sauk attacks, U.S. troops drive out the Indians. Okay, I'm going to stop right here for a second. Okay, why? Because I want to tell you a little bit. So I've been doing this research on this. And so what happened was Black Hawk was doing fine. He inherited his chiefdom from his father. His father was a great chief and was killed by a Cherokee Indian in a battle. And so Black Hawk became the chief. When the white man came, of course, they sided with the British, and that was a bad decision because it somehow during my studies, I find out that a lot of the Indians sided with the British or the French. Why? Because they were nice to them. The British were nice to them. Not as nice as the French. The French was probably the nicest. The British would probably come in second, and they hated the Americans. They really did. They just despised the Americans. And I don't think it was so much the settlers themselves, but the white man came moving in all the time. So as these white men came moving in, of course, you know, the old saying goes, you got to learn history, and then you can see what happens in the future. So mind my words. So what happens is the government moves in and you know, bought the land up in the Louisiana Purchase. And when that happened, the government owns the land. Now they made a treaty with the Indians, and this was funny how the treaty went. And the Indians were kind of buffaloed. They bought they made a treaty with the Indians saying that you can stay on your land, and until a white man comes and wants to buy it, and then when he buys it, you got to move. So as long as the government owns the land and nobody else does, well, you're out of luck when somebody buys the land, and you can stay there forever until we sell it. But the Indians didn't realize that white men were buying up the land, and the government they bought the chunk and they were going to sell it off little piece by piece. So of course you got surveyors in there surveying and doing their thing, and they're selling off these chunks of land. Well, the Indians had to move every time. Eventually they made a treaty with the Indians and said, this is so funny, that they were going to give the Indians $1,000 a year forever if they would move on the other side of the Mississippi. And somehow or another, they thought this was, most of them thought it was a good deal. And they moved on the other side of the Mississippi. But guess who lived over on the other side of the Mississippi? Was the Sioux. The Sioux didn't really like them. And they were, and the thing is they were growing all their crops on the other side of the Mississippi because that's really where they lived. And now they had nothing to eat. So they were starving Indians. And Black Hawk, this is where Black Hawk comes in. He says, hey, come with me. And he gathered like 800 Indians, and they moved across back over to the other side of the river. And on the other side of the river, they weren't supposed to be, because, what the treaty said, be on the other side, on the western side of the Mississippi. Along that time, now they were hostile, and they were just looking for food. They were hungry. They were starving. They had gardens and crops planted, and so they went back across looking to see if they could find some of their corn or their squash and their beans and harvest something. But that didn't come to pass because the army marched in and started chasing them around. And the first big skirmish they had, Black Hawk won hands down. He was so proud of himself, which tended to be overconfident. And when that happens, I noticed through all my studies that once the Indians beat the white man in a battle, the white man sends out lots more troops and lots more guns and lots more troops. And of course, lots more troops. Black Hawk did find a swamp to hide in because the troops were all around him and he had no place to go, and he knew he couldn't fight in the open area. Now, if you've ever been to Iowa, most of Iowa is cornfield. And if you've been to, Wisconsin, there's a lot of cornfield. It's open, and of course you get the hills and stuff in it, and the swamps, and it's very wooded, easy to hide. So Black Hawk and his troops hid out there. They went north for a while. Oh, sorry, David. I thought I sent you a link. Doggone. Oh, man. I know I sent you a link. Oh, well. Yeah, I'm glad you said something because I was wondering where you were at. I'm going to send them a link. Yeah, anyway. Sorry about that. Oh, what did I do? I sent the wrong thing. No, I want to get rid of that. Anyway, nope, I don't want to do that either. Anyway, okay, where was I? Okay. Okay, I got it. Sorry, David. I thought I sent it out a couple of days ago. Oh well. Those are the tidbits you have problems with when you do things and you do things fast. Anyway, getting back to that's what I should have sent out. Oh, maybe that was the link I sent out on Sunday. And if you haven't seen it, we had a great show on Sunday. We pulled cards, and we'll hopefully do it again. And yeah. Anyway, Black to Blackhawk. Oh, I don't know what I did here. Okay, there we go. I don't know how I did that. Oh well. I don't know how I did that. But anyway, sorry about that, everyone. My delay. Back to Blackhawk. He was in the swamp, and as he was in the swamp, he yeah, he says, I've been waiting. Thank you, David Null, for letting me know. I know I called him, and I usually if I call him and then he says, yeah, he got the link. Oh, I was just busy today. Sorry. Anyway, Blackhawk's in the swamp. And as he was in the swamp, he's getting dwindled down because he's getting attacked. And his band of Indians breaks up, and about 400 warriors head back. Now they're heading back, and they get cornered. They get cornered between the Mississippi, and this is kind of where the Sauk and the Fox Indians ended up dying out, because they went ahead and got cornered between the Mississippi and the land. And on the land was the marching troops, and on the Mississippi was the riverboats, and they had cannons. And out of 400 warriors, only 70 survived. It was a total massacre and wiped out. Yes. So yeah, it was a total mess. I tell you, the poor Indians. Well, anyway, Blackhawk went north. He hit out with the Winnebagos, and eventually was yes, I know Susie Q. I got his link. Total massacre and wiped out. Anyway, he hit up with the Winnebagos, and eventually he was convinced to give himself up, which he did. Now, this is the turn of events that went badly. Well, I think they've done this many a times, is in the turn of events, Blackhawk and his troops and his women and children, they all gave up, and they got put on in prison, sort of. But then somebody thought of a good idea to gather all the chiefs. Now, this is a reoccurring thing. They gathered up all the chiefs and sent them to Washington, D.C. to meet the president and see the giant buildings and the big ships and all the industrial things that were going on. And he came back and knew that he had been defeated, because there was nothing he could do but surrender and be like the white man. And there's my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for joining me. I can't believe I forgot to send you a link.
Yeah, you honestly didn't. And I was like waiting on you, and I should have went ahead and checked earlier, but I was like, well, Robert's going to call me or something, or he should send me. And I had, my Gmail open, but nope, you didn't send me one. But here I am. It's okay. It's groovy.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I talked to you, and then I was like,
I was sitting here waiting.
Yeah, because I always send it out early. And I thought I sent it out the other day, and maybe I didn't, and maybe it was for Sunday that I sent that.
Yeah, you sent Cindy out, and then you sent a mistake because you had 8:45 in the morning or something, and then you sent another one. So, but anyway, it's all right. Hi, everybody.
Well, as long as it's all working now, and I just did, I did my spiel. Let's see, I'm trying to get my microphone work. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt.
No, that's all right. I got a little bit more here, and I want to go through some of these things with and I got to figure out my speaker. I don't know why my oh, that's because I had it off. I had my thing off, and just, oh yeah, same as speaker soundbar. Hang on. Oh, there we go. That's why I can't hear you. You're out there, not in here. And I don't want to have can you hear me now? Apparently I did them. Oh, here. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Now I got it right. I clicked on the wrong thing. I had the thing and I forgot to turn it on. And since you weren't here, I couldn't test it. Usually I work out those skips. But anyway, we got Susie Q in the house. Susie, I'm sorry. Yeah, she says, she was telling me, yeah, go send him a link. And Max G is in the house. Lucky Smith, things happen for a reason, he says. Yeah, I don't know what reason that was. Pod Joe is in the house. Thank you for coming, Pod Joe. And Travis the Brick. We got a whole bunch of people. They were all over at Riders, I'm sure. Listen to him. He had a really good show on tonight. But anyway, let's see. So anyway, so here's Blackhawk. I'm going to get back to the sharing the screen. I got some really doozies here for Blackhawk. And I feel bad for him, you know, because, you know, he was trying so hard to keep his people, you know, but they cheated him. And he felt he was cheated. And I do believe they cheated him. But, you know, I'm learning a lot of stuff from history, and basically boils down that the U.S. government, they don't care about you. They care about the U.S. government. Okay, and here's a fun one I found. So I'm looking at old maps. People, I do a lot of research for you. And this is a map of Oklahoma. And if you look really close, right here, remember we always know that they marched all those Indians down to Oklahoma. They wanted to put the Seminoles there, and the Creek, and the Comanche and the Apaches, and they moved them all to
The Cherokee.
Oklahoma. Yeah, the Cherokee, all to Oklahoma. And I'm looking on this map, and what pops out? The Sauk Fox Agency. Look at that. They even got their bit in Oklahoma. Ain't that something? Yeah, some of these maps are from this is Oklahoma, and look at these territories here. Cherokee. Here you can blow these up and you can see the different tribes. Wasazia, the Canadian, the Kingfisher. All of these are here's the Creek Nation, the Chickasaw Nation, the Kamish, Townsend, the Nashkaba. You know, I mean, all of these were Comanches and Apaches. You know, they literally shrank the whole map of Indian Oklahoma territories. And this was 1894. If you can see the 1894 here, they literally took all the Indians from the United States and shrunk it down to the size of Oklahoma, and they put them all here. Here's one from 1887, and you can see the difference between 1887 and 1897, how it's changed. You know, look at here, the Cheyenne, the Cherokees. They shrank each one of these groups. The Osage, the Pawnee. Look at the Pawnee, just get a little spot here, you know, and the Wichitas, the Cheyenne, and the Arapaho, the Kiowa, Comanche and Apache, the Chickasaw Nation, the Choctaw, you know. And then if you go back to this one, so you got this one here. Here's the Iowas, the Potawatomis. I mean, it's kind of interesting because you're like, wow, you know, okay, they're putting them all in here. And then 10 years later, they shrank them all down and they moved more people in on these people's land. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're just, well, let's keep putting them in. Now, and you can see by this whole section here, they covered the whole United States and they shrank them down to one state. Okay, so back to Wisconsin here, and here's the Ojibwe and the Potawatomi. Now they had a spot in Oklahoma too. Here's the Menominee, the Ho-Chunk, the Dakota Sioux. believe it or not, before the event of the horse and stuff, the Sioux were from like Minnesota and Wisconsin. And let's see. Oh, here's and this is a picture of the Sauk Indians as they met Lewis and Clark. This is, can you imagine being Lewis and Clark, pulling up on the shore and finding these people standing? I mean, it'd be a scary sight. I mean, you'd almost be afraid of them. You know, like they had to have courage. Here's another picture. This is Black Hawk. Apparently this is when he was in chains. See the ball and chain? They're all handcuffed. You know, we learned to look at these pictures really good, because you get a lot out of those pictures, you know. Here's Indian chief. This is not Black Hawk. It's just the attire they wore, you know, their colors, their vibrant colors. Okay, here's more. This is one of their dance things that was recorded back in the day.
Wait, zoom in a little closer on that one.
Okay. Okay. Ain't that cool?
Yeah, but it almost looks like a ghost dance.
Yeah, I don't remember what the caption was on this one when I looked at it, but you could see somebody here, like must be a medicine man or somebody old. This guy looks old, and he's talking to these three.
Yeah, well, the other guy's got a rattle.
This guy's got a rattle.
No, I mean sitting.
Oh yeah, this guy's maybe it's a drum.
Yeah,
maybe this is a drum.
Looks like it might be a drum there.
Yeah, and then this guy's dancing, and this guy here. See, they got these other guys, and they got full dress. These two, three, they kind of look different than all the rest. You notice that he's got a full garb on.
Yeah, it's more like they're observing it than they are participating.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. You notice these ones got shoes on. Usually we see them and they're all barefoot, but these got shoes. That's kind of interesting. Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to the next. Okay, here's another map I found. You can see this is the Sauk and the Fox and the Kickapoo. You know, I lived in Wisconsin almost my whole life. You know, hearing these names, the Winnebago, Potawatomi, Kickapoo, you know, the Kickapoo River, Menominee. I drive, you know, it's a city or a county, you know. Sauk, I live next to, you know, I've been to Sauk County and Sauk City and down the Kickapoo River. I've been all over the Chippewa and you know, and the Fox River. I mean, I've been to these places, the Potawatomi, the Ho Chunk. They have casinos and stuff. I never really, except for the Ho Chunk, I didn't know that these even existed. So, you know, so people, you know, you may think the name, look at Peoria. I didn't know that was a name of a city, or, you know, it was an Indian thing, you know, but anyway. It's just kind of weird. I've known these names all my life and never associated them with Indian stuff. You know, I mean, most of them anyway. Here's this is a picture I found of the Sioux. The Sioux were great horsemen. Remember, I was talking about the Sioux and how they battled with and then of course the Sioux kind of ended up living on the west side of the Mississippi, but they were great horsemen. They could lean off their horse as a shield and still shoot arrows, as you can see here. This guy, this guy and this guy up here, he's leaning off his horse and they're shooting arrows using their horse as a shield, which is amazing. It is quite the feat to do that, not fall off, especially when you don't have a saddle like these guys do. You're talking a blanket. Okay, here's a battle between the Sioux, the Sac, and the Fox, 1848. Now, in 1848, they had moved across the Mississippi to the west side, and of course there was going to be battles because, I mean, in 1848, Wisconsin was becoming a state, and you know,
in that knowledge alone, that's just telling you how many people had moved into Wisconsin in order to make it a state. This is from Catlin. He was a prized painter of the day, cited the Sioux warriors could kill and scalp the enemy while remaining on horseback. How crazy is that? If they only knew, they were all going to be wiped out. Early Indians in Wisconsin. It says, I put this up because not so much of, it's so much reading, I'm not going to read it all. And basically it was telling Americans, Indians have long been part of the cultural heritage of Wisconsin in the colonial period. They were important partners, a lucrative fur trade. Of course, they went through, they caught all the beaver, shot all the deer, they didn't have anything. In 1784, 85, and 87, they established a procedure for the settlement of the Northwest Territory. Of course, and an ordinance called for the expansion with decent treatment of the American Indians. This was designed to be the rule regarding U.S. Indian policy. However, there's always that however. Vast majority of cases, expansion took precedence over the decent treatment of the Indians. For Wisconsin, the establishment of the Northwest Ordinance marked the end of the preservation of the land for the Indian nations and fur trade. Yeah. 1800 to 1815. During this time, the U.S. government took control of the Indian land through subterfuge, retaliation, and sale. In Wisconsin, the process began as early as 1804, when the government forced the Sauk and Fox to secede land claims to the southern Wisconsin. This would later lead to the Black Hawk War of 1832. After his defeat, Black Hawk stated the whites were not satisfied until they took our village and our graveyards from us and removed us across the Mississippi. In the north, the Menominee, the largest American Indian population in Wisconsin, also gave into the government pressure and sold away 11,600 square miles of land on the lower Fox River. Wow. And then they made a treaty, of course, in 1825. And this Council of the Indians, of course, it involved council involving Indian groups of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Mississippi River Valley. The government had definite agenda. Of course, the government always has an agenda, and determine the boundaries and Indian nations with a later acquisition. At the council, American government emphasized the concept of a tribe. So now they're going to tell you what a tribe is. The drift towards Pan-Algonquin culture had been developing for quite some time. For trade, merging communities and linguistic similarities. So they merged all the Indians together. In the 1700s, the government strategy was to encourage negotiation with specific tribes rather than the tribal confederates. Prairie du Chien had a profound impact on America. Indians living in Wisconsin. Yeah, I've been to Prairie du Chien. In 1871, marked the decision of the American government to stop making treaties with American Indian tribes. Most Indian land had been acquired already, and most of the Indian population was on reservations at this time. Wow. So think of it. By 1871, they pretty much rounded up all the Indians, had them all, and they didn't need. It says here, Dawn's Act between 1887 and 1934. As a result, the Indian land base was reduced from 140,000 acres, 140 million acres to 50 million acres nationwide. In Wisconsin, half of the total reservation land was lost this way. The Oneida, Stockbridge reservations were nearly wiped out. The government expected that for the most part, the Indian population would dwindle away and what was left would assimilate to white culture. As the settlers pushed farther beyond the Mississippi River, Indian populations continued to decline due to disease and violence. Fortunately, Indian tribes did not die out or become assimilated and continue to thrive today. So I thought that was important because it just tells you the rapid pace that the government took to wipe out the Indians. And here's a Sauk Fox Indian, and they were known for these things on their feet. See these things on their feet? They had these like flaps. Now the men wore flaps that were a little smaller, and the women had huge flaps. It was like a
Spats.
yeah, these things.
Right, but I
Spats?
mean, in America we had spats.
Oh, yeah, this was like their if you've seen an Indian that had these big flaps on them like this, the spats or whatever, they were sock or fox. These were their trademark, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, I did not know that. And here's another one. As you can see, he's got these big flaps on his feet too. Still, he carries a tomahawk. He has, traditional garb, very bright colors. Probably this is all leather and buckskin type stuff. Here's an Indian family from the early 1900s. And as you can see now, they are more assimilated to the white man's ways. And you can see their dress has changed dramatically. They're wearing skirts, pants, clothes, clothing. Yeah, sure, they're keeping with the necklaces and the beads and things like that. I don't know how this would look in color, but for the most part, they are,
And
you
look
buy-
look at their faces.
yes, they almost look all unhappy. But no, but I hate to say that. I did a little studying on that pictures of olden times, and that back in the day, taking a picture, most people didn't smile. Didn't matter who you were. Smiling was not a thing. Did you know that?
Yeah, but that lady not holding the child and the little girl standing next to her, she's disgruntled.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you look at old pictures, and I have, and I read a thing about this, and it said that it's hard to find pictures of olden times where anybody was smiling.
Right,
Nobody
because
smiled.
they had to hold still also.
Yes, but I mean, you could still smile, and hold still, but they didn't. Nobody was smiling.
Yeah, but back those in the day, it was just, okay, hold still. That's what they said.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
whatever they were doing, hold still.
Yeah.
So smiling or otherwise, the command was hold still.
Okay, and here's another group of sock fox Indians. You notice their garb. See the big flaps on their shoes?
It looks like they'd trip on them or something,
Yeah, I know. It's just weird. But you can see the big weird flaps they had. I don't know. Well, I don't know what the purpose of that was, though. I think that's all I have. I just, I really, I just really feel bad because, everyone I looked at, they really pushed and pushed and pushed in a real big hurry, and they dwindled Indians. The Indians got hungry. They didn't have any food. They wanted to put them on reservations. And then once they got them on the reservations, they shrank the reservations. So like you can see in Oklahoma, let's stuff another tribe there. Hey, you guys move over 20 miles this way and that way, and we'll stuff another tribe in the middle of them. Oh, yeah. We got a crowd of people coming in. We got Elderberry. He's in the house. And Pa Joe says the Modocs were the last Indian war in 1872. Some of the warriors were taken as political prisoners. Interesting. Pearl Jones, Delaney Pearl Jones is in the house. S. Lee is in the house. Thank you for coming. Carrie Bergman is in the house. Thank you for coming. It's always a good day when Carrie shows up. All righty. So that's my spiel on the Black Hawk Indians and Black Hawk the chief. I feel bad because when he was fighting that war, he was already an old man. and he surrendered, and he did live for 4 or 5 years after that. And he's just, I think he was just tired of fighting, watching everything, but I think there is a grave somewhere. I did look that up. I thought I had a picture of that, but maybe I didn't. Okay. Well, anyway, what do you got for us tonight?
An odd story, and I
Yep.
have skipped over it a few times. I don't think I've read it. It's Chase of the Severed Head
Oh, okay.
on page 230, and it's a Cheyenne story. And in looking in the book at those stories that I haven't read, I'm like, I keep going over this one for whatever reason. I think I was going to save it like for Halloween or something, but what the heck? Not the heck.
Yep. Oh, I'm getting closer.
But some of these ones that I haven't read have always they're interesting.
Yeah. Well, all these stories are so cool. They all have a meaning. I think about them all the time. They do. I mean, it's so funny how I can remember some of these stories later on. When I can't remember anything half the time. I can barely remember Mother Goose. Okay, 230. I'm running slow here. It just seems like I got the wrong page. 230. Chase of the Severed Head. I like it. Okay. Roll that up and share screen. There we go. And there it is. Look at that. I managed to do it.
Chase of the Severed Head, Cheyenne. We ready, eh? Okay.
Yes, anytime.
Once in a lonely lodge, there lived a man, his wife, and 2 children, a girl and a boy. In front of the lodge, not far off, was a great lake and a plain trail leading from the lodge down to the shore where the family used to go for water. Every day the man went hunting, but before starting, he would paint the woman red all over, coating her face, her arms, and her whole body with this sacred medicine to protect her from harm. After he departed, she would leave the children alone in the lodge and go for water. When she returned with it, the red paint was always gone and her hair was unbraided. She would manage to get back with her water just before her husband arrived. Not being a good hunter, he never brought any meat. Though he asked her no questions, her husband thought it strange that every night the paint that he had put on his wife in the morning had disappeared. One day he said to his daughter, "What does your mother do every day? When I go out, I paint her, and when I get back, she has no paint on." The girl replied, "Whenever you start out hunting, she goes for water, and she is usually away for a long time." The next day, the man painted his wife as usual and then took his bows and arrows and left the lodge. But instead of going off hunting, he went down to the lakeshore, dug a hole in the sand, and buried himself, leaving a little place where he could look out. The man had not been hidden long when he saw his wife coming with a bucket. When she was near the water's edge, she slipped off her dress, unbraided her hair, sat down on the shore and said, "Na shui, I am here." Soon the man saw the water begin to move, and a mihni, a water spirit, rose from it, crawled out on the land, crept up to the woman, wrapped itself around her, and licked off all the red paint that was on her body. The man emerged from his hiding place and rushed down to the pair. With his knife, he cut the monster to pieces and cut off his wife's head. The pieces of the monster crept and rolled back into the water and were never seen again. The men cut off the woman's arms at the elbow and her legs at the knees, saying, "Take your wife." He threw these pieces and her head into the water. Then he opened the body, extracted a side of her ribs, and skinned it. Returning to the lodge, he said, "Ah, my little children, I have had good luck. I have killed an antelope and brought back some of the meat. Where is your mother?" The children answered, "Our mother has gone to bring water." "Well," he said, "since I killed my meat sooner than I thought, I carried it back to camp. Your mother will be here pretty soon. In the meantime, I'll cook something for you to eat before I go out again." He cooked a kettle of meat and took it to the children, who both ate. The little boy, who was the younger and the last one to suckle, said to his sister, "This tastes like mother." "Oh," said his sister, "keep still. This is antelope meat." After the children had finished, the little girl saved some of the meat for the mother to eat when she returned. The father got his moccasins and other things together and started off, intending never to come back. He was going to look for his tribe's camp. After he had gone, the children were sitting in the lodge, the girl making moccasins and putting porcupine quills on them. Suddenly, they heard a voice outside say, "I love my children, but they don't love me. They have eaten me." The girl said to her brother, "Look out the door and see who is coming." The boy looked out and then he cried, very much frightened, "Sister, here comes our mother's head." "Shut the door," cried the girl. The little boy did so. The girl picked up her moccasins and her quills, red, white, and yellow, and rolled them up and seized her root digger. Meanwhile, the head had rolled against the door. "Daughter, open the door," it called. The head would strike the door, roll part way up the lodge, and then fall back again. The girl and her brother ran to the door, pushed it open, and stood to the side. The head rolled into the lodge and clear across it to the back. The girl and the boy jumped out. The girl closed the door, and both children ran away as fast as they could. As they ran, they heard the mother calling to them from the lodge. They ran and they ran, and at last the boy called, "Sister, I'm tired. I can't run any longer." The girl took his robe and carried it for him, and they ran on. At last, as they reached the top of the divide, they looked back, and there they could see the head coming, rolling along over the prairie. Somehow it had gotten out of the lodge. The children kept running, but at last the head had almost overtaken them. The little boy was frightened nearly to death, as well as exhausted. The sister said, "This running is almost killing my brother. When I was a little girl playing, sometimes the prickly pears were so thick on the ground that I couldn't get through them." As she said this, she scattered behind her a handful of the yellow porcupine quills. At once there appeared a great bed of tall prickly pears with great yellow thorns. This cactus patch was strung out for a very long way in both directions across the trail they had made. When the head reached that place, it rolled up on the prickly pears and tried to roll over them, but kept getting caught in the thorns. For a long time, it kept trying and trying to work its way through, and at last it did get loose from the thorns and passed over. But by this time, the girl and the boy had gone a long distance. After a while, however, they looked back and again saw the head coming. The little boy almost fainted. He kept calling out, "Sister, I'm tired. I can't run any longer." When the sister heard him, she said while she was running, When I was a little girl, I often used to find the bullberry bushes very thick. And as she said this, she threw behind her a handful of the white quills, and where they touched the ground, a huge grove of thick, thorny bullberry bushes grew up. They blocked the way, and the head stopped there for a long time, unable to pass through the bushes. The children ran on and on toward the place where the tribe had last been camped, but at length they looked back and saw the head coming again. The little boy called out, "Sister, I'm tired. I can't run any longer." Again, the girl threw quills behind, this time the red ones, and a great thicket of thorny rose bushes sprang up and stopped the head. Again, the children went a long way, but at last they saw the head coming, and the boy called out, "Sister, I'm tired." Then the sister said, "When I was a little girl playing, I often came to small ravines that I couldn't cross." She stopped and drew the point of her root digger over the ground in front of her. This made a little groove in the dirt, and she placed the root digger across the groove. Then she and her brother walked over on the root digger, and when they had crossed, the furrow became wider and wider and deeper and deeper. Soon it was a great chasm with cut walls, and at the bottom they could see a little water trickling. "Now," said the girl, "we will run no longer. We will stay here." "No, no," said the little boy. "Let's run." "No," said the girl. "I will kill our mother here." Presently, the head came rolling up to the edge of the ravine and stopped. "Daughter," it said, "where did you cross? Place your root digger on the ground so that I can cross too." The girl attempted to do so, but the boy pulled her back every time. At last, she managed to lay the root digger down, and the head began rolling over. But when it was halfway across, the girl tipped the stick, the head fell into the ravine, and the ravine closed on it. After this, the children started on again to look for the people. At last, they found the camp and drew near to it. Before they arrived, however, they heard a man's loud voice. As they came closer, they saw that it was their father speaking. He was walking about the camp and telling everyone that while he was out hunting, his two children had killed and eaten their mother. He warned the people that if the children came to the camp, they should not be allowed to enter. When they heard this, the children were frightened. Still, they didn't know what else to do but to go into the camp. The people immediately caught them and tied their hands and feet. And the next day, the whole tribe moved away and left the children there, still tied. In the camp, there was an old dog who knew what had happened and took pity on the children. The night of their arrival, she went into a lodge, stole some sinew, a knife, and an awl, and took them into a hole where she had her pups. The next day, after all the people had gone, the children heard a dog howling. Presently, the old dog approached them. "Grandchildren," she said, "I pity you and have come to help you." The girl said, "Untie me first, and I can untie my brother." So the old dog began to gnaw at the rawhide strings around the girl's hands. The animal had no teeth and could not cut the cords, but they became wet and began to slip. The girl kept working her hands and at last got them free. She untied her legs and then freed her brother. That evening, they walked about through the camp and picked up old moccasins to wear. Both children were crying, and so was the dog. They all sat on a hill near the camp and cried bitterly, for they had nothing to eat, no place to sleep, and nothing to cover themselves with, and winter was coming. The girl and the dog sat weeping with their heads hanging down, but the boy was looking about. Presently he said, "Sister, see that wolf? It's coming straight toward us." "It's useless for me to look," said the girl. "I couldn't kill him by looking at him, so we can't eat him." "But look, sister," said the boy, "he's coming right up to us." At last the girl raised her head, and when she looked at the wolf, it fell dead. Then the dog brought the tools that she had stolen before the tribe left. With the knife they cut up the wolf, and from its skin they made a bed for the dog. The children stayed in the abandoned camp, living well now, while the people in the new camp were starving. The children kept a large fire burning day and night and used big logs so that it never went out. But after they had eaten the wolf, they began to feel hungry again. The girl became very unhappy, and one day, as she sat crying with the dog sitting beside her and the boy standing and looking about, he said, "Sister, look at that antelope coming." "No," said the girl, "it's useless for me to look. Looking will do no good." "But look even so," said the boy. "Perhaps it will do as the wolf did." The girl looked, and as with the wolf, the antelope fell dead. They cut it up and used its skin to make a bed for themselves. They ate the flesh and fed the old dog on the liver. The girl would chew pieces up fine for the toothless animal. At last the antelope was all eaten, and again they grew hungry. Again the boy saw a strange looking animal, this time an elk, which fell dead before the girl's look. She stretched the elk hide, which they used for a shelter. With the sinews the dog had stolen, they sewed their moccasins and mended their clothing. When the elk meat ran out, the boy saw a buffalo coming straight to their shelter, and the girl killed it by a look. They cut up the meat and used the hide to make a larger and better shelter, where they stayed until winter came and the snow began to fall. One night when the girl went to bed, she said, "I wish that I might see a lodge over there in that sheltered place in the morning. I could sleep there with my brother and the dog on a bed in the back of the lodge. I could make a bow and some arrows so that my brother could kill the buffalo close to the camp when they gather in the underbrush during bad weather." So she also wished that her brother might become a young man and that they might have meat racks in the camp and meat on them. In the morning, when the boy got up and looked out, he said, "Sister, our lodge is over there now." It was in the very place the girl had wished. They moved their possessions and their fire over to it. And when the boy entered the lodge, he was a young man. That winter, he killed many buffalo, and they had plenty of meat. One night, as she was going to bed, the girl made another wish. "Brother," she said, "our father has treated us very badly. He caused us to eat our mother, and he had us tied up and deserted by the people. I wish we knew how to get word to the camps, and I wish we had 2 bears that we could tell to eat our father." Next morning, when the girl got up, 2 bears were sitting in the lodge on either side of the door. "Hello, my animals," she said. "Arise and eat." After giving them food, she went out to one of the meat racks and pulled off a piece of bloody fat. She called to a raven that was sitting in a tree nearby. "Come here. I want to send you on an errand." When the raven had flown to her, she said, "Go and look for the camp of my people. Fly among the lodges and call them. And when the people come out, ask each other, 'What's that raven doing? And what is he carrying?' Drop this piece of fat into the thick of the crowd. Then tell them that the people you come from have great scaffolds of meat. The raven took the piece of fat in his bill and flew away. He found the camp and flew about, calling and calling, and a number of men sitting here and there began to say to each other, "What's that raven carrying?" The raven dropped the meat, and someone who picked it up said, "Why, it's fresh fat." Then the raven said, "Those people whom you threw away are still in the old camp, and they have scaffolds of meat like this." And then the raven flew back to the girl. An old man began crying out to the people as he walked through the camp, "Those children whom we threw away have plenty of meat. They are in the old camp, and now we must move back to it as quickly as we can." The people tore down their lodges, packed up, and started back. Some of the young men went ahead in little groups of 3s and 4s, and when they reached the children's camp, the girl fed them and gave them meat to carry back to the others. All the trees about the lodge were covered with meat, and buffalo hides were stacked in great piles. After a while, the whole village arrived and camped not far from the children's lodge, and everyone began to come to the lodge for food. The girl sent word to her father to hold off until all of the rest had been fed, so that he could come and take his time instead of eating in a hurry. She said to the bears, "I'm going to send for your food last. After that person gets here and has eaten, I'll say, 'There's your food,' as he goes out of the lodge, and then you may eat him up." In the evening, when the last of the people was leaving the lodge, she said to her brother, "Tell everyone not to come anymore tonight. It is my father's turn now." When the father came and they fed him, he said happily, "Oh, my children, you're living well here. You have plenty of meat and tongues and back fat." He did not eat everything his daughter had set before him. "I'll take all of this home for my breakfast," he said. After he had left the lodge, the girl said to the bears, "There's your food. Eat 'em up." The bears sprang after the father and pulled him down. He called to his daughter to take her animals away, but they killed him and began to drag him back to the lodge. The girl said, "Take him off somewhere else and eat him. And what you don't eat, throw into the stream." What the bears did not eat, they threw in the creek. And then they washed their hands, and no one ever knew what had become of the father. Since that time, bears have eaten human flesh when they could. The boy and the girl returned to the camp and always afterward lived well there. Based on an account by George Bird Grinnell in 1903.
Wow. That was a little long one, but it was really good.
Yeah, that's
That was.
why some of these longer ones we saved, but I read it a couple of times and I was like, it's just an interesting story, that they would call revenge on the father and ask the bears, they didn't want to kill him, but they said, "There's your dinner."
Yep. Wow. There's
Because
your dinner.
Because the father had forced them to eat their own mother. I mean, come on, how sick is that? So
Yeah.
but anyway.
Well, it sure didn't go the way I was imagining it was going. There were I didn't, the turn of events and how they got to the father, it took a while, but I thought it would have been a lot faster. Like, the mother's head would have came and the father would have seen him and he would have got freaked out and jumped off a cliff or something,
Yeah, but it was a quiet revenge.
Yes.
I mean, it was a quiet revenge.
Yep.
All I gotta say about that.
Absolutely.
And he never saw it coming, you know.
No, he thought he was in good graces. The children are feeding me. So there's some important things I listened while I was listening, you know. And did you notice how they kept talking about the fat? It was always the fat, the back fat, the meat. They have meat and fat. And that's the thing, you know, everybody's all like, oh, fat's bad for you. That's what they ate. Fat. Fat was good. Fat makes your brain power go. Fat makes your body work. You need those oils, you know, like people take fish oil and stuff like that. You need those oils and that fat to function. Is that not right?
That too, but also stuff would taste really bad if there weren't some grease or something in it. I mean,
oh yeah.
Their collard greens don't taste right without a little bit of fat back in them. I mean, you know, a little hog jaw or something like that. I mean, there's that fat, you know, was also flavoring.
Yes. That's just like having a good ribeye that's, you know, marbled.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, you notice how the certain things they said, like the tongue, you know, they eat a lot of tongue. I know when this is funny, when I went out to Montana this summer, we went to one of the stores there, and as we were in the store, we came across a freezer, and in the freezer is tongue. They had like piles of tongue in there to buy. Now, of course, this was in Indian country, and we're going through all the reservations, and they had bunches of tongue in the freezer that you could buy. Now, if I wasn't on vacation, I probably might have bought one, but not much I could do on vacation. I don't really know. I remember my mom made tongue when I was a kid. We had it quite often, and it was really good. She would bake it or cook it or something in the oven, and then she'd slice it like little bitty. It looked like spam. It was nice and red, and slice it, and boy, it was tenderized, and it was really good. Of course, you had to scrape it because it's got all those little things on the top of the tongue, so you'd scrape that stuff off. It was really good. Jan Soul says she wants a steak, but tongue is good. Well, I'm glad you ate tongue too.
Along with things like beef heart. There are a lot of people. My grandfather was a butcher.
Yeah.
So he would, my dad was a meat cutter. So grandpa did the butchering and cutting open and then skinning part. My pops he got the pieces afterwards and cut them up, into steaks and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
you guys got all the good stuff then.
Well, I mean, there was what a lot of people don't know is that like beef tongue that's not sold is cut up and ground up and ends up in bologna and hot dogs.
Yeah.
It's like, because they're not throwing that stuff away.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I did a thing in grade school one time, and I used a real beef heart. And there were little girls that were puking, and I was showing the different valves and everything. And my grandfather got it, and I took it to class in a little cake box, and out come this beef heart. And I think it was like 7th or 8th grade, but
yeah.
The idea though, that it's like, what are you going to do with it afterwards? Well, you're going to eat it. That's what. It's a solid piece of meat. It's a solid piece of meat.
It's all muscle. It's all muscle.
Slice it up and put it in the gravy, and but anyway, yeah. So those types of things, we just don't, we don't normally eat,
Yeah. That's why they throw it in the hot dogs, because, you putting tongue out on the marketplace. People just don't buy it like they did years ago. Now, maybe 100 years ago, tongue was people would be scarfing it up. But today, they look at it and go, oh, tongue, I ain't eating that. They don't know what they're missing, but it just tells you the different types of foods that we have gone through, and we don't eat. They were fancying the fat, and today everything is lean. We want lean meat. We want less fat, less this, less. You want no fat. You know what I mean? It's the push of no fat. Fats are bad. Well, it's not really.
And not only that, but many years ago, I was one of those that the meat had to be so well done that it was like cardboard.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine said, listen, I'm going to buy you a steak, and it's going to be cooked the way I want you to eat it. And if you don't like it, you can send it back to the kitchen. But I want you to eat a medium rare steak. And I was like, what? All that blood and juice. And after I ate that, took 2 or 3 bites of that steak, I never went back. That throw it on the grill and burn it on both sides and eat it.
Yeah.
Do not cook it all. Lord have mercy. The people that want steaks and things well done, not when it comes to a steak. But anyway.
Well, and that is so true. I remember back in the day, that's kind of how we always had steak when I was a kid. But then it was like, I had that chance to, like you said, I don't remember when it was, but I tried. I think when one of my buddies was getting steak that was, he's like, burn it on both sides, and that's the way I want it, and bloody, still moving. And I'm like, what? And man, I tried that, and it was so good. It was so much flavor, and it wasn't tough. I wasn't going, it was melting in my mouth. And really, that's kind of how it's supposed to be eaten, not so much burnt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they made jerky, but that was different.
Yes.
So, but anyway, beaver is the card.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Beaver is a card. When we pulled cards the other day, you did not pull a beaver card.
Nope. There was a lot of them we didn't pull, but
Yeah, but still, that's kind of interesting. We pulled a lot of cards, and yet you still pulled something that we didn't have. And we haven't had beaver for a long time.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But it hasn't been that long.
No.
Beaver is the builder.
Yes.
Beaver, teach me to build my dreams, including others too. One mind, one thought, hearts as one, lessons learned from you. Beaver is the doer in the animal kingdom. Beaver medicine is akin to water and earth energy and incorporates a strong sense of family and home. If you were to look at the dams that block woodland streams, you would find several entrances and exits. In building its home, beaver always leaves itself many alternative escape routes. This practice is a lesson to all of us not to paint ourselves into a corner. If we eliminate our alternatives, we dam up the flow of our experience in our lives. A doer is characterized by industriousness, and beaver knows that limitation cancels productivity. In other words, if you're limited in what you can do, you're not going to get much done. Beavers armed with very sharp teeth that are capable of felling whole trees. And they do, they take down whole trees. Imagine what those teeth could do to the limbs of a predator. From the rear, beaver is armed with a paddle-like tail that aids in swimming as well as guarding its behind. To understand beaver medicine, you might take a look at the power of working and attaining a sense of achievement. And building a dream, teamwork is necessary. Even if you do it by yourself, it's me, myself, and I. In building a dream, teamwork is necessary. To accomplish a goal with others involves working with the group mind. Group mind constitutes harmony of the greatest and highest order. Group mind constitutes harmony of the highest order, without individual egos getting in the way. Each partner in the project honors the talents and the abilities of the others and knows how to complete the piece of the puzzle that belongs to them. And working well with others, a sense of community is achieved and unity ensues. If beaver has appeared in your spread, it may be time to put your ideas into action or to complete some project that has been neglected. The beaver card could also be asking you to settle differences with fellow workers or friends. Beaver tells you to look for alternative solutions to life's challenges and to protect the creations which put your love and energy into. Sometimes beaver brings you a warning to watch your back. If this is your message, you will know it by the position and which the card falls, but it didn't fall. I just took it. So beaver, when we accomplish an achievement, so we build our dreams, but you know, we still have to work with others. Work with the elementals. And the beaver tail, they use it for a whole lot more than just covering their behind. They like to whomp it. They'll take their tail and just push it down into the water, and the water will gush up. They have a wonderful time doing it. I know Duggar and I have watched them down in the river before doing it. So beaver, build your dreams, build your future, work with others together and achieve something. Even if it's just making a fine dinner.
Cool. You gotta love beaver. They're so cute. You know, they're builders. You gotta work together and build the new future. How about
And
that?
they'll chew a tree down in a heartbeat too.
Oh, they will. I remember when I was a kid, I'd go down to the swamp and the river and ride my horse down there, and we'd see all these beaver trees that were cut, you know, trees that were cut down by the beaver, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, you know, there's got to be a beaver here. And once in a while, if you get way down in the swamp, you'd find a beaver down there, and it would smack its tail on the water, you know, and then you could see it dive. And once in a while, you'd see one that would just be swimming. But I tell you what, it's hard to see a beaver. I don't know. Have you seen a beaver?
Oh yeah, it's the time of day, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's they like to come out late in the evening and swim out, you know, or really early in the morning. You know, now they'll come out at different times of the day, but I've noticed that they like to come out more in the evening time. That's when I've seen them most.
Yeah, and like I said, it's hard to get close to one. I mean, when I was a kid, man, we ride down there. I'd ride down there all the time, hoping to see a beaver. And yet, as soon as you get close, they slap that tail, and all you'd see is little, you know, things swimming across the water, and that's all you'd see of them. Never did I ever catch one on shore. Never.
Yeah, that's true. I've never seen one on shore either.
Oh yeah.
You know, lots of trails and lots of beaver signs, but never the beaver on. I've seen otter running along on the bank before,
No, I
but
never, I
I've
never
not
seen an otter before.
Oh man, they are so cool. They are just so cool.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah, let's see. S. Lee says sheep's blood, cooked in sheep's blood stomach, mixed with vegetables, is also a Navajo delicacy. Interesting.
wow.
Never had sheep's stomach or sheep's blood. Okay. Well, although I used to raise sheep and did cook lamb. I used to have a lamb butchered every year. Man, I loved lamb. Lamb was really good.
I haven't had any lamb in a long time and not been able to get it in down here.
Yeah. Yeah. It ain't like one of those common things you go in the grocery store and there's lamb on the counter, you know. Like I
Nope.
said, I raised my own and then I take it to the butcher shop and man, that's the way I got lamb and it was really good. To me, it was like a cross between beef and pork.
Yep.
It's kind of in the middle.
Yep.
Yep.
That's what I remember myself.
Yeah, but very interesting night with the story. I really enjoyed that story. I'm going to be thinking about that. How she like had this magic power. I wonder if it was because she ate her mother or they were, but all those stories, they're always magical. I noticed that. They're always magical.
Yeah, and she didn't know it until the wolf dropped dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was almost, in a way, it was almost like a curse, but at the same time, it was almost like a blessing.
Yeah.
It didn't say where she got it or how she got it. She just could do it. So, and then she wished that the lodge had moved and that her brother had grown up. I mean, interesting.
Yeah, she was full of wishes.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. But yeah, very interesting story. I got a lot out of it, especially, like the meat thing. And, there's always these little clues of their past and stuff. Maybe the way we live, we've gone so far the other side, we really don't know how to live anymore.
Right. And well, there's like the forgiving, so her and her brother had learned to but they got the antelope and then they got the buffalo and then she wished and she got the bow and arrows and he got bigger and he could hunt for them. And then they built racks and invited their tribe to come back.
Yep.
I mean, they could have just,
yeah, because
you all, you threw us out and moved away and left us tied to a tree. And but no, instead she sent a peace offering and said, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. They shared and the tribe was starving.
Right.
They were hungry. They were starving to death. And so it's the thing. When you get bountiful, share with other people.
Sometimes and there's forgiveness in there. I mean, the boy and the girl didn't hold any long-term animosity or anything, or hatred or revenge. Now they did want to get back at the father and they did, but they fed the rest of the village first, and so she was a cunning little devil. All right, don't send anybody else to our lodge tonight. Everybody else. Okay. Now let's feed you. Oh yeah, let's feed you well and send you home with stuff. And interesting though, what she said was, what you don't eat, just throw in the river, just throw in the creek.
That kind of reminder of what the father did to the mother.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So interesting. Very interesting story. I'm gonna have to make a short on that. But anyway, well, it's been a good night. We're about an hour and a half in and I gotta go to work tomorrow, so we should wrap it up. But thank you for coming. Sorry I forgot to send you a link. I thought I did,
and I was trying my best not to bug you, and then someone said, is he online? Is he out there doing it?
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
and I'm thinking, I'm like, it's 8, because usually at 8:45 you're right there, and I'm like, boy, he ain't there. Then I'm thinking, boy, it's getting closer to 9. Should I call him? Maybe he fell asleep. I don't know. He was out. He'll be there. Maybe he's having problems with his computer. And then it's all of a sudden it's just like 9 o'clock.
Link. And
yeah, I'm glad you came in the chat.
I need to go find you and see what's up. So
yeah,
but it worked out.
Yeah. Next time, just holler, call, whatever. It was my bad. I take all the blame and responsibility for this one.
I knew you were busy and kind of running late a little bit, and so I just assumed that you were, trying to get your stuff together.
Yeah, I thought I sent it out. I mean, like I said, I had sent out Sunday's link and then today's link, and oh well, whatever. It all worked out. You're here. We had episode 43, and that's amazing. 43, and next week we'll be back with great stuff. I know next week I'll be studying up on Sitting Bull, so that's going to be an interesting one too. And that's the last of my little book that I got. And that concludes that book. We now have to move on to another one. But
there you go.
It's all good. And this book was 10 Big Indians, was quite the read for me. There's so much in that book that told about Black Hawk that I just can't even talk about. I mean, it would just make the show really long. How, it talks about his childhood and who his father was, and how what I liked about that was it talked, unlike all the other things I read, it talks about how he felt, what he wanted to do, and how he felt about his people. And yeah,
well, not to cut you off, but all of the other great chiefs were like that. They really felt for their peoples.
Yeah.
The one, was it last week where I can't remember.
Seminole guy.
No, that would have been the week before, not Osceola.
Oh no, not Osceola. Red Jacket.
Yeah, Red Jacket and Hiawatha too, remember?
Hiawatha, yeah.
And how much they cared for their people and how much they wanted to bring all of the tribes together, and how,
Yeah, they wanted nothing but the best for them.
The story is so different from our politicians.
Yes. But
because they wanted it for the whole of their peoples, whereas most politicians wanted it for themselves.
Yes.
And still do.
Yeah.
Oh, the great state of Georgia. Yeah, well, what do you get now, this buddy?
Yeah, and I agree with that. But the bad part I see over and over is the story always remains the same. The Indians wanted to be Indians. The white man came. The Indians got some trinkets, and then the white man came. Then the government came, and then they kicked the Indians out. And then the white man came some more, and they rounded up the Indians, and the Indians were starving and hungry, and the same thing. They went to war and my buddy tells me, why do you study the history of the Indians? And I say, because it's the same old thing over and over. And now we are the Indians. You don't think that government is, if we start getting starved out and we're hungry, because desperate people do desperate things, what do you think the government would do to us?
They would do exactly like reservations. I mean,
Yeah, they would round you up, the ones that are hostiles. They would round you up, and they would, treat you accordingly and put you in a small area and say, fine, we cordon off this spot, and that's where you're going to be, because we have people who are going to work hard and pay taxes and do what we say. If you don't like it, tough luck.
Look what they did during World War II. I mean, with the Japanese, the internment camps. I mean, there were German internment camps. And, if they thought that, that you might be a spy, they rounded your ass up, and that was, almost in my lifetime.
Yes.
But you know, the idea that, you know, there are, the Agenda 21 has you know, FEMA camps all over the place.
Yeah.
So
They just label them
they
with something different.
they could round us up anytime they, you know, choose to, because they've done it in the past, and
Yeah.
they feel that they are obligated to do so because something gives them the right to, you know.
Yeah. Well, we'll think of it this way. If we say we go to war with Russia, you know, I already hear things about Russia and what other countries are doing with, like France. I listened to this thing the other day, and like this lady, she was locked out of her bank account because she has a Russian name. You know, we ain't doing business with Russians. She just lost all her money. She can't get in her bank. I mean, and if you got one country, any book that was written by a Russian is thrown out of the library. I'm like, how does that have to do with the Russian war thing? You know, I mean, what are we going to do? You got a Russian name? Oh, well, we're going to round you up and put you in an internment camp. You might be a spy, but you and your family have lived here for, you know, 50, 60, 70, 100 years. You came over on the, through New York, through, what is it? Ellis Island, the whole 9 yards there. And you've been here ever since. But we're going to round you up because you got a Russian name and put you on a FEMA camp.
Yep.
How is that? You know, I mean, just like those Japanese, they took them right out of their houses, their businesses, everything, put them on FEMA camps, and they lost all that stuff. They didn't get it back. The government didn't go back and say, well, okay, the war is over. You can go back to your house. It's gone.
Yep. There is still litigation about some of that stuff going on now.
Yeah. You get zero because you're Japanese or German or whatever. Zero.
Well, just listen, everybody. We're all Native Americans. If you were born in this country, you are a Native American. And so put that in your pipe and smoke it, you know. And for as late as it is, you know, I know, Robert, you got to get to work tomorrow, and we could run this thing on another 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
But let's give folks a break and make this a
shorter one.
a shorter one.
All right.
A longer one.
I know it's almost getting to political, but you know, this is why we study the Indians, our history. You know, all the history tells us about our future.
Because it was political.
Yes.
It was very much political. And to kind of top that off, or not top it off, but you know, people who go to reservations like Rosebud Plant out there, you know, these folks live it's like a third world country. They don't live in extreme luxury or anything like that. No, they live in concrete block houses with a roof on it, and that's about it. Yep. You know, there's no amenities, there's nothing. You know, folks think, oh, the reservation. It is not glamorous at all.
Yeah.
And so life on the res to this day is you know, guaranteed by the white man, because what goes on in the res is got to go through the Indian interpreter and the Indian blah blah blah, and then it's got to go through the council, and it's a bunch of stuff. So
well, just
this idea that the Indian has got it good these days, nah, he's still being persecuted. They are still being persecuted.
Yes, just think, there's 60,000 Americans that in the United States that don't have any electricity, and most of them live on reservations. Take that one for a thing. But anyway, thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, David Null. It's been a great night. We're going to cut this out. I got to go to work, and we're going to, we'll see you back here next Tuesday night, and we'll do it all over again. So remember, be the frequency you want to receive. I love you all, everyone.
And cheers.
Peace, everybody. There we go. Another show in the bag. Woo-hoo. Hot diggity dog.